Welcome to Talking with the Animals, an exploration of animal communication. Join animal communicator, craniosacral therapist, and NES practitioner Caroline Pope as she discusses how to understand other species as they truly are, not just from the human perspective. That's right, Mecco. Discover how communicating with our four-legged friends can open up a whole new world for both of you. And now, your host and Australia's most recognized and well-known animal communicator, Caroline Pope.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Talking with the Animals. I'm your host, Caroline Pope. Thank you for joining me. Now, I know it's been rather a wee while, actually, since we've done a podcast. My apologies. Thank you for everybody that's continued to write in, message, all those fun things, asking me to do more. Life's pretty much got in the way. We all know how it is. But I'm back. It may not be quite as regular for the next little while, but the podcast will continue. Now, the last several months, I think it's really shown to me just what we're doing to our dogs. And I've had several cases that have really tugged at the heartstrings. And I decided to do a little bit of research because basically the way we are breeding our dogs is leading to so much suffering, both for humans and for animals. I remember, it would have to be in the early 2000s. I am going to write to the ABC and see if I can get access to the program. But basically the ABC Catalyst program ran a show, as I say, many years ago. And it was basically an English program rather than an Australian. And they were, because the English have a museum with a whole lot of stuffed dogs. So basically they were comparing what a certain breed of dog was 100 years ago versus what it looks like now. And they had all these taxidermied dogs. And it just showed how much our breeding for fashion versus performance has affected the dogs and how very different they look. They did a fabulous computer animation, which of course as a craniosacral therapist I really loved, of what's happened to the bull terrier's skull in the last 100 years. You saw pictures of German shepherds and how they looked 100 years ago versus how they did now. Peaks, pugs, all the brachyphilics, all these sorts of things. And the furor from this was so much that IAMS, or Eukanuba, call it what you will, actually pulled out of Crufts, which is the biggest English dog show that year due to the backlash. And one of the statistics that really, I remember even then, caught my attention was over here we have Moodle-oodles, poodle crosses. They don't. We have a lot of crossbred dogs. At that stage, the English had mainly purebred, and the way we have all the Moodle-oodles, they had Cavalier King Charles Spaniels. Now, the Cavy at that stage had less genetic variants, and there was thousands, if not millions, in the UK alone, than the giant panda, which is an endangered species. Think about that for a moment. Less genetic variants due to what dog breeders now euphemistically call line breeding, which is inbreeding. And when you look at the royal families across Europe, we all know inbreeding doesn't do us too much good. Now, in 2022, the Norway Supreme Court banned the breeding of Cavalier King Charles Spaniels. Think about it. What's that telling you? So they have banned from basically this inbreeding, and they've stated that they want to crossbreed out a few generations and that these dogs will then also be allowed to be registered as a Cavy. Now, for everyone that's going, oh my God, you can't outcross. it adds new genetic material, which it clearly in the Cavalier is very badly needed. But how do you think we got our original dogs to start with? We crossbred. And this is to try and improve the health and longevity of the breed. I believe there's also, I was reading stuff about the German Shepherd as well. So if we've got to the stage that a court of law has to ban something, we know it's got pretty bad. Now, speaking of German Shepherds, the latest research shows that basically 1 in 5 or more shepherds will get hip dysplasia. 1 in 5. Hip dysplasia is excruciatingly painful, and many shepherds don't show it till they're older, but many shepherds do cruciate ligaments, which is the kneecap, as they're younger, because they are putting excessive strain on the knees because they're changing their posture to try and take pressure off the hips. So that is one of the many reasons, as of course the recent studies have shown with people's mania for desexing dogs unnecessarily and too young. And I'm not getting into that argument. Europe doesn't desex. In some countries, it's actually illegal to desex the animal unless it's for their health, and they don't have the stray dog population. You can sterilize a dog, leaving its hormones intact so it can't breed. But the studies have shown that the dogs have a 94% less chance of doing a cruciate if it's not sterilised or desexed, I should say. It's still got its hormones until the age of 2. Change that to 3 for giant dogs. So 94% reduction in surgeries simply by allowing nature to do its job. Again, think about what we're doing. Now, the bull terriers, as I said, the skull in that show Catalyst was absolutely fascinating because I'm a craniosacral therapist. And people now are almost taking for granted that bull terriers will have neurological problems. And that just does my head in. It should not be widely accepted. One of my very good clients used to have a fabulous old English bull terrier, loved him to bits. When he lost his dog, he did his research and went to a so-called reputable breeder who is president of the association in her state, purchased a puppy. He was calling me within 2 weeks. This dog was, to quote him, not right. She was a very tortured soul. We did everything. We did body work, we did supplements, we did this, we did that. She had brain scans. I would say conservatively, and I'm being very conservative, she would have cost this guy $20,000 easily, possibly more. And ultimately, they also suggested trying medication because, and I quote the vet, that bull terriers are autistic. Now, that did my head in because bull terriers don't have the correct frontal cortex to be what is known truly as autistic. But they do have, because of the way we've bred the skull and all the twisting and that of the cranial nerves, they have a bunch of brain problems. Now, this breeder also had said, the mother was a stress head, but she thought if she bred it with a chilled male, that it would be okay. If you know the mother's not got a great temperament, why is she breeding full stop? And unfortunately, as all this was going on, this gentleman called me and said, a friend of mine has just got a miniature bull terrier. He's had them before. He's done all his research. This is sounding similar, and he's got young children. Unfortunately, I never got to see that particular dog. It was euthanized before I could even get there. But with young children, he didn't get an option. And at first, both breeders went, oh, no, it's just behavioural. Then they saw videos and both went, oh. Now, there aren't that many English Bull Terriers around these days. I must confess I have a very, very soft spot for them. In the late 80s, early 90s, when I was vet nursing in St Kilda, there was a fighting ring broken up of English Bull Terriers, and they had to stay at the vet clinic and be patched up. And they had the most beautiful temperaments. Unfortunately, ultimately, they were put down because, of course, the moment they saw another dog, they would try and kill it because that was both genetics and environment. But I really did learn a lot about the breed back then, and I do have a soft spot for them. But in the last 2 years, I've seen 5 Bull Terriers, 2 are dead, 3 are on meds. There is not a single normal, in inverted commas, Bull Terrier. And I don't know. All I can say is I truly hope that the breeder of this gentleman's dog doesn't sterilises the rest of the litter and doesn't use any of that line again. Sadly, I have my doubts. Now, I shouldn't be complaining because, seriously, the Brachyphelix and the Dachshunds keep me in work. As a craniosacral therapist and with Nest Health, the spinal problems these dogs have is just insane. But a Swedish insurance company, their statistics show intravertebral disc disease in the Brachyphelix, the pugs and the Frenchies. And in fact, no, I apologise. This one was just pugs when I was looking. 27.2 to 28.4% of dogs had intravertebral disc disease. Frenchies, I believe it was higher. Dachshunds are, of course, very high in there as well. Now, for those of you that read anything about disc disease in dogs, they will say discomfort or pain. Believe me when I say it's a hell of a lot more than that. Speaking from personal experience, I've prolapsed discs, not once but twice because, I have horses. The amount of pains, the amount of painkillers I was on, 5 different ones all at the one time, and that was just to keep me standing. I'm healed, but not all of them do. And of course, I'm a human. I show signs of pain. Dogs as a species do not. Taken for granted that both pugs and Frenchies have multiple abnormalities in their spine. Multiple. And pug myelopathy is now the second most prevalent or important problem in pugs. So that's basically, they can start by the age of 3 to show signs of hind end weakness. And of course, don't even start me on the Brachyphelix with their airway issues. Dr. Gareth in Never Work with Animals, can't remember the guy's surname, one of the best and most entertaining books I've ever read, was talking about the oxygen saturation point and recent studies. Basically, most of us should have about 98% oxygen saturation. He used to do, probably still does, a lot of hill climbing, and he was talking about altitude sickness and how he felt when he had altitude sickness, the exhaustion, the immense effort to do anything, and the chronic headaches. And that's in 85 to 88% oxygen saturation. And as he said, I can go down the hill. I have a choice. Most brackies don't have that much oxygen. And in fact, levels as low as 70% have been found in the Brachyphelix. That's the pugs, the Frenchies, etc. I'm sorry, that's animal cruelty. And it certainly explains why nearly all the dogs I work on complain of constant chronic headaches. 45.5% of French bulldogs have intravertebral disc disease. So not only can't they breathe, and when we look at photos of a normal, in inverted commas, dog versus a brachy, as far as airways, the brachyphilic airways can be less than a third the width of a normal airway. So not only are they gasping for air, 1 in 2 almost will have excruciating agony, because I'm sorry, that's what it is when you prolapse discs. Everything runs off the spine. Believe me, that was a whole new meaning of it. So I shouldn't complain, as I say, because these dogs keep me in business. But to me, we really need to look at what we're doing to our dogs. Why are we breeding animals that can't breathe? Why are we breeding animals that 2 out of 3 Frenchies was the statistic? I couldn't actually get what became an accurate one on pugs that needed stuff for BOA. That's the airways, so that they can breathe. That's not compatible with life, let alone comfort. All these dogs that have to put their head up, and people go, oh, they're putting their head on a pillow when they sleep. It's because they can't breathe. Asthmatics, people that are gasping for air with asthma, think of that your whole life. That's what some of these dogs go through. We really do need to ask ourselves, why do we think that's cute? Why do we think that a German Shepherd, that, as one of my clients said, German frogs, and some of their back ends really do look like that? Why, when we know, and I'm not just picking on the Shepherds, it's just that most people know them for hip dysplasia. God knows it's in Golden's labs, etc. Yes, some of it, rather a lot of it, is diet. Yes, there's environment. It's definitely a multifactorial problem. And credit to the Shepherd Club, they have tried to stamp quite a bit of it out over the last 20 or 30 years. But why do we breed dogs to look like that? Go back and watch Lassie I think that was the 1950s or 60s, the original Lassie came out on telly. It was definitely black and white. Lassie had a head like a German Shepherd. Now dogs get what's called collie eye because they've elongated the snout so much that the eyes can't fit normally. Why do we do this? And, I get people think pugs and peaks are cute and Frenchies. I don't. I do not see anything cute in a mutant that's in pain and gasping for air all of its life. And I've realised I've probably got a whole bunch of you offside, but I'm sorry. I'm not thinking of what they look like. Just because a human perceives something as cute does not mean a dog should be in agony all of its life, or discomfort, or pain, or gasping for air. We really do need to rethink why we find this cute if we know our animal is suffering. And 1 in 2 French bulldogs, I did read a statistic in Australia that said that the average French bulldog, by the time you've done the intravertebral disc, the breathing and a few other, and probably a cruciate, would spend approximately $40,000 on their dog. Now, if you've got $40,000 to throw away, hey, throw it my way. I can make better use of it than that. But why are we deliberately and knowingly breeding a dog, or buying, which is worse, a dog that we know has those issues because they're in fashion? Why? Because someone in Hollywood has them? Because they've got a face that we think is cute, or bulgy eyes? We really do need to take a good hard look at how we perceive our animals, and why are we breeding with the English Bull Terrier, which such someone called them eggheads lately. That was one of the things they've now got apparently a skull like an egg. A wolf or a dingo does not have a skull like an egg. Why is it that we feel we need to do this when we know the type of suffering and potential neurological issues, not to mention kidney and a whole bunch of other things, that the bull terrier has? So if you're looking at getting a dog, please think about these. The Dachshund keeps me in business. But why? They're saying that 24 to 27% of Dackies will have intravertebral disc disease. 73% will happen between the age of 4 to 8 years. But in the most recent 2023 study, 15 to 30% of Dachshunds showed signs of spinal degeneration on X-ray and MRI at 1 year of age. 1 year. And I had a Dachshund Dachshund as a kid. We're obviously going back many years ago. It was the family dog. But he had legs. Now they're saying don't even allow your Dachshund to do a step because it puts too much pressure on the spine. Use a ramp. I get they're little, but if we're breeding a dog that cannot go up a single step or up onto a gutter from a road, again, my question is why? What is it we're getting out of breeding and looking at these animals that are continually suffering? We really do need to take a look, as I've said, at how your dog is moving, what your dog's quality of life is. And I mean, let's face it, we don't all age gracefully. We all pay for the sins of our youth. Even dogs, working dogs like border collies and coolies and stuff that, leap after balls and go hard, pointers. They don't age gracefully, but they've at least got mildly better genetics than these poor dogs. You yourself at 80 aren't going to feel as sprightly as 20. Chances are you'll be on some sort of supplement or painkiller. Why are we breeding our dogs to cause them pain? Really have a look at your own animals, see what you can do to improve their quality of life. And if you do choose to have a pug or a pig or a Frenchie or a Dackie or any of them, really have a good hard look. And when your beloved fur friend goes, really think, do I want to perpetuate suffering? Or am I prepared to pick a dog that has at least a genetically, because accidents happen, we all know this, but genetically slightly more prepared for life? Because our animal friends and our dogs really do deserve a lot better than what we are doing for them. Thank you for listening to this episode of Talking with the Animals. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you feel like writing a review, we'd love you to. Please continue to write to me, message me any questions you have on anything, any topics you'd like me to cover. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay safe and remember to talk with your animal.
Thank you for listening to Talking with the Animals. To learn more about Caroline and the services she provides, visit caroline-pope.com. You can also find her on Facebook at Caroline Pope Animal Communicator, CST, and NES Therapy. Are you ready to change the way you see your world and the animals in it? Well, we know his answer. Don't forget to subscribe, and see you next time.